Imagine waking up in the middle of the night, except it's not night. You check your phone. It says 11:47 a.m., but outside your window, nothing. No sunlight, no shadows, no sky, just darkness. The kind of darkness that feels wrong. The kind that makes the world go silent because even the birds don't know what time it is anymore. Now imagine that every person on Earth is staring at the same impossible scene, a planet trapped in pitch black at noon, and no one knows why. At first, people think it's a glitch, a solar eclipse maybe, a strange weather phenomenon. But then, as minutes pass, panic begins to spread. Because this isn't how eclipses look. This isn't how clouds behave. This is different. This is unnatural. The sun isn't hiding. It's simply not there. Airports shut down instantly. Traffic stops as headlights flick on. Millions of people pour out into the streets, staring upward at a sky that shouldn't exist. A sky with no light, no warmth, no familiar glow behind the clouds. Just empty, infinite blackness. Scientists sprint into observatories. News anchors stumble over words. Governments quietly prepare emergency protocols they hope they'd never use. The world is confused, shocked, terrified, and completely unprepared. As the first hour passes, the temperature begins to drop, slowly at first, like a winter breeze. Then faster and faster, animals become restless. Plants fold inward. Entire ecosystems start reacting within minutes because they depend on sunlight to know when to wake, when to sleep, when to feed, when to survive. And without the sun, every living thing on Earth becomes disoriented at the exact same moment. But then something even stranger happens. The night sky begins to glow, not from the sun, but from the stars now brighter than anyone alive has ever seen. Billions of them, sharp, cold, and unfiltered. The Milky Way becomes a glowing river across the darkness. Cities turn off their lights just to look, mesmerized and horrified at the same time, because for the first time in history, the entire world shares the same night. But this isn't just about darkness. This is about what begins to happen to Earth itself. The planet starts cooling at a terrifying rate. Oceans begin releasing fog as their surfaces rapidly lose heat. Winds shift as temperature differences vanish. Power grids strain as billions of heaters turn on at once. And scientists everywhere work desperately to figure out one thing. Where did the sun go? And is it coming back? Because if it doesn't, humanity is finished. But this isn't the story of the sun disappearing forever. This is something even scarier. The sun vanishing for exactly 24 hours. One full day without the star that powers our oceans, our weather, our plants, our bodies, our very existence. And trust me, what happens between hour 1 and hour 24 will shock you more than any space disaster you've ever imagined. So let's break down, minute by minute, what Earth actually experiences when the sun suddenly goes dark for a full day. And what happens the moment it reappears. The moment the sun disappears, Earth enters a countdown. A silent, invisible timer that begins ticking the second sunlight vanishes. And the first thing to collapse is not the temperature, but time itself. Every living creature on Earth is wired to the rhythm of daylight. When that rhythm is abruptly severed, the world falls into a strange limbo where no one knows when to sleep, when to wake, or what to expect next. Human biology starts glitching. People feel unusually tired or unusually alert or trapped in a strange emotional fog. The absence of sunlight is not just physical, it's psychological. But beneath this confusion, Earth's systems are beginning their slow collapse. In the first 30 minutes, the planet still glows faintly with heat captured during the morning. But without fresh sunlight, that warmth begins bleeding away into space. The Earth is like a giant stone pulled from a fire. At first, it still burns. Soon, it cools. By hour 1, the temperature has already dropped about 1 degree Celsius. It doesn't sound like much, but it's enough to make the air feel sharper, thinner. People walking outside feel a strange bite in the wind. Animals notice it too. Birds begin circling, confused by the endless night. Nocturnal creatures come out early, unsure if they missed their cue or if something far worse is happening. Pets behave nervously, pacing with anxiety they can't explain. Meanwhile, scientists everywhere are running simulations, comparing data, scanning every inch of the sky. Telescopes point where the sun should be, but nothing is there, not even a silhouette. It is as if the sun was deleted, erased from the sky like a glitch in reality. And that terrifies them, because for the first time, humanity has lost the one thing we assumed would always be there, the sun itself. By hour 2, Earth's surface has cooled enough for the oceans to react. Water releases a thick fog as it rapidly loses heat to the cold air above it. Coastlines vanish behind walls of mist. Ships sound their horns, not because they're moving, but because they're moored and still worried they might collide in the darkness. Beaches become silent white deserts of cold, damp air. Cities begin to transform. Buildings that usually glow under warm sunlight now appear icy and metallic under artificial illumination. People crank up heaters. Power grids ripple under the new demand. On social media, billions of posts appear, photos of pitch-black skies, confused pets, panicked crowds. Humanity is documenting the strangest day in history as it unfolds in real time. By hour 3, plants begin panicking. It sounds absurd, but plants are mathematical creatures. They measure the sun's angle, its intensity, its duration. When everything they rely on suddenly vanishes, their internal chemistry shifts. Flowers close prematurely. Leaves curl. Crops begin altering their energy use. Forests around the world fall into a kind of suspended animation, waiting for the light that never comes. Meanwhile, the temperature continues to fall. By hour 4, it's cold enough that people outside without jackets begin shivering involuntarily. In tropical regions, the sudden chill feels alien, a cold that doesn't belong there. People start wearing layers inside their homes. Hospitals prepare for an influx of hypothermia cases. Homeless shelters fill instantly. At hour 5, the world realizes something unsettling. Humans might be adaptable, but the infrastructure we depend on is not. Roads freeze faster. Cars struggle to start. Airplanes grounded earlier in the day begin freezing over. Runways become stiff and brittle. Trains move slower to avoid rail contraction issues. And for the first time, economists begin predicting the cost of this event, trillions in damage if the sun doesn't return soon. Hour 6 brings a strange beauty. With the sun gone, the stars explode across the sky in a way no living human has ever witnessed. Billions of them. The Milky Way becomes a glowing river of diamonds across the heavens. People in cities gather on rooftops, staring upward in awe and terror. The night sky becomes the brightest part of the darkness. And for a moment, perhaps the first and last moment, humanity collectively pauses to look, united in the most cosmic silence in history. But this beauty carries a cold warning. Literally, by hour 7, Earth's temperature has fallen between -7 degrees Celsius, depending on location. Lakes begin forming thin layers of ice. Pipes in colder regions start to crack. People's breath becomes visible even indoors. Pets shiver under blankets. Children complain about numb fingers. And the elderly struggle the most, their bodies too slow to adapt. By hour 8, humanity is beginning to understand the long-term consequences. Without sunlight, solar panels go offline. Entire nations that depend on solar energy lose a significant portion of their power. Battery backups kick in, but they won't last 24 hours. Governments begin rationing electricity, dimming public lighting, lowering heating in government buildings, and advising citizens to conserve power. Hour 9 brings ocean chaos. Without sunlight driving wind cycles and evaporation, ocean surfaces become perfectly still, unnaturally still. Not a single wave breaks on thousands of beaches. Fishermen stare at oceans as flat as mirrors. Marine animals panic in unusual patterns. The ocean feels dead, frozen in thought. By hour 10, global communication networks feel the strain. Not because of the dark, but because of the cold. Towers, cables, and satellite dishes begin operating less efficiently. Some freeze altogether. Signal delays become noticeable. Millions of people begin losing connection. Emergency centers prioritize essential communication only. Hour 11 and Earth's atmosphere is shifting. Without sunlight heating one side of the planet, wind systems slow dramatically. Areas that should be breezy become eerily still. Other regions, particularly mountains, experience sudden gusts caused by uneven cooling. Weather patterns start to break down entirely. Hour 12 marks the halfway point, and the psychological collapse begins. People everywhere feel a sense of dread, the kind that seeps into the bones. Humans are not built for perpetual darkness. Depression spikes, anxiety surges. Sleep schedules warp beyond recognition. Entire cities feel like they're trapped in a nightmare that won't end. Mental health hotlines experience record-breaking call volumes. By hour 13, wildlife chaos intensifies. Nocturnal animals are exhausted because they've been active too long. Diurnal animals are confused and stumbling. Birds crash into buildings, mistaking lights for the sun. Predators roam in unusual areas. Entire ecosystems begin malfunctioning, a domino effect no one can stop. Hour 14, and the temperature drops enough for snow to appear in regions that never see snow. Tropical areas get frost on palm trees. Countries near the equator report ice forming on rooftops. People take photos, not because they think it's pretty, but because they know it's wrong, deeply, cosmically wrong. By hour 15, the cold is now dangerous. Pipes freeze and burst in millions of homes. Heating systems struggle. Cars become useless blocks of metal. Batteries drain faster in the freezing air. People begin burning anything they can to stay warm. Fireplaces glow in cities where they haven't been used in decades. Hour 16 brings global panic. The sun has been missing for so long that some people begin to believe it won't return. Religious groups gather. Scientists release emergency briefings. World leaders address their nations. Panic buying erupts again. Shelves empty. Streets become ghost-like as people retreat indoors. Hour 17, and crops begin entering crisis mode. Without sunlight, photosynthesis halts completely. Plants begin consuming stored sugars. Some begin irreversible damage. Farmers try to warm greenhouses with artificial light, but electricity limits make it nearly impossible. Hour 18, and the oceans experience their most dramatic drop yet. Surface temperatures fall sharply. Coral reefs begin bleaching from thermal shock. Fish migrate unpredictably. Whales become disoriented. Marine ecosystems enter early collapse. Hour 19, and the world feels colder than any winter in recorded history. Minus 20 degrees Celsius in some regions that were warm just a day before. Heating systems fail. Frostbite cases skyrocket. People huddle in groups for warmth. Humanity becomes primitive again, not because of lack of technology, but because technology cannot fight nature forever. Hour 20, and the air becomes razor sharp. Breathing feels colder. Ice forms inside buildings. Water becomes solid overnight. Emergency services collapse under demand. Authorities distribute blankets, but they're not enough. Hour 21, and power grids begin shutting down as fuel supplies freeze. Darkness becomes even darker. The world is silent except for the sounds of cracking ice and distant emergency sirens. Hour 22, and Earth's atmosphere begins to condense slightly. Fog becomes thicker. In some places, crystals dance in the air, frozen moisture forming glittering sheets in streetlights. It's beautiful, but deadly. Hour 23, the cold becomes lethal. People without shelter won't survive long. The world is quiet, defeated, barely hanging on. And then, hour 24, a faint glow. Weak at first, then stronger. Birds begin making noise, confused chirps, but hopeful. People step outside with tears in their eyes as a sliver of gold breaks over the horizon. The sun returns. Light floods the planet. Warmth begins creeping back. And for a moment, humanity realizes how fragile we really are. But the hardest part isn't the darkness. It's what happens after the light comes back. Maybe the scariest thing about the sun disappearing for 24 hours isn't the cold, or the darkness, or the panic. It's how quickly we realize just how fragile everything on Earth really is. Imagine those final minutes before the sun returns. The world is silent, no cars, no cities buzzing, no sound of morning birds. Just billions of people waiting together in a darkness that feels endless. Families huddle in their homes. Strangers gather in the streets. People stare at skies that should be blue but remain ink black. For the first time in human history, the world shares the same fear, and yet hidden inside that fear is something beautiful. People who've never spoken to each other offer blankets, flashlights, food. Entire neighborhoods gather around fires, sharing stories, memories, regrets, hopes. You suddenly see people calling their parents, apologizing to old friends, hugging their kids a little tighter. Because when the sun disappears, the things that separate us disappear too. It's strange, isn't it? It takes losing the sun to see how much we take it for granted. The heat that warms our skin, the golden light that paints our mornings, the energy that keeps every plant alive, every ocean moving, every breath possible. We never think about it until it's gone. As the 24-hour mark approaches, scientists broadcast one last message. Be ready. The sun should reappear at any moment. If everything goes right, people gather outside, even in the freezing cold, waiting with wide, hopeful eyes. Mothers hold their children close. Friends grip each other's hands. Elderly people look up at the sky with tears in their eyes, realizing they might never see another sunrise if things go wrong. And for a moment, nothing happens. Just darkness, cold, silence. Humanity holds its breath. Then, slowly, a faint glow touches the horizon. At first, it's only a whisper of light, then a thin golden line, and suddenly, there it is. The sun, blinding, brilliant, warm, like a miracle returning to a world that forgot how much it needed it. People laugh, cry, scream in joy. Some fall to their knees. Others simply close their eyes and let the warmth hit their face, savoring the feeling they never truly appreciated until it vanished. Animals emerge from hiding. Birds begin to sing again. Cities flicker back to life. The world begins breathing. And in that moment, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. We survive because of the sun. We grow because of the sun. We live because of the sun. And we forget because it never stops shining. But imagine if this 24-hour darkness wasn't a glitch in the universe. Imagine if one day it wasn't just a temporary disappearance. What if the next time the sun vanished, it never came back? If you're still watching, remember this. The universe is full of mysteries. Anything can happen. And sometimes imagining the impossible helps us appreciate the miracle we already have. Don't take your sunlight for granted, because one day, even the brightest stars burn out.